during this 24-hour podcast, I've been sending out automated Twitters. And obviously, I don't Twitter this much when I'm actually not doing an event like this. I might Twitter a couple of times a day. And I try to do a good mix-up of, well, you know, I twit a lot of business stuff, but the people that are following me kind of expect that. And giving updates on what we got going on with advertising. But there is definitely that fine line there, right, to being commercial and actually trying to pimp a product or service, and at the same time, you know, being personable. I guess that's a better word for it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's where some people have taken offense, I think, in the past. And, you know, I've been on Twitter a few years now. I'm not sure how long you've been on, but I'm not, in terms of how many years you've been using it. I know Blueberry are also on Twitter as well from your organization. But one of the things that I've certainly noticed is perhaps like in the last year and a bit, then some people who were on Twitter initially started to get a little bit concerned when they saw marketers getting on Twitter. And I certainly saw a lot of internet marketers getting on using Twitter as part of their online strategy, but particularly in terms of not being in conversation and engaging. And I know that many people want to be in conversation with people who are there, and you know, some people are able to do that really well. And one of the key questions I find when I teach social media programs is really, a lot of people will look at Twitter and say, I'm either on it, but I just don't get it, or I'm not on it and I don't get it.
Right.
And it's not until you actually look at, well, is Twitter right for you, which is really what I was suggesting in that question that I'd suggested to you, Todd, about, you know, to tweet or not to tweet. That's the question.
Yeah.
Because all of these channels are fantastic, and I could absolutely make a case for, you know, most businesses to have a podcast, whether it be an internal or an external podcast, or to blog, or to use Twitter, or to use Facebook. There's often a way you can find ways to do it, but it's all about what's right for your community, isn't it? And are those people going to be there? And when people look at your podcast, and when they look at your Twitter account, and when they look at your blog, they're really looking, I think, to see, well, what information are you able to share, and do we quickly get an assessment of what, for example, Geek News is all about, you know, and what Todd believes in and what he stands for. Or if they look at my account, you know, am I consistent? Am I in conversation, but am I also sharing useful tips? And there was an interesting conversation that went on here in terms of earlier on, it was late last week, and I don't know if you know Bob Berg. He's a terrific guy. You'll find one of his really excellent books is called Endless Referrals. Many of us get business through networks and referrals, and that's a book he wrote several years ago, but you'll also find him on Twitter. And there was a conversation that was going on at a networking event here in Ireland late last week, and one of the questions that was going on around that was people didn't understand his philosophy in his new book. It's called The Go-Giver, about giving useful resources and tips and so on. Because whether people listen to your podcast, or let's say the one we do with the Podcast Sisters, or some of my own podcasts, I think most of us try to create valuable content, and some people will come away and will look to that content and actually be able to go away and implement from the ideas that you've shared. And the same with Twitter. You can put, you know, links back to perhaps articles you've written or your podcasts, but actually not have to be over promotional. You can also promote other people's resources. So, you know, I've tweeted late last night and early this morning about some of the things that you guys have been doing and Blueberry's doing and so on. It doesn't mean to say that, you know, I'm not providing value to my community. It's not always about, so to speak, pimping your own product. So I think that you're right, there is that fine balance in terms of being conversational and helpful. And something like Blueberry being there for customer service. I mean, I noticed that's one of the things that you guys do really well in Twitter, is that you're picking up if people have got questions and how to help people as well. So, but it's not necessarily right for every business.
That's true. And we also have, you know, I basically put in some policies internally. We have a evangelist that runs our Blueberry Twitter account, and we kind of did put in some publishing policies, basically saying, okay, you know, we have to, we have, even though if someone asks us a direct question, obviously we always respond. But, there's times like last week, one of our competitors was having serious problems, and we didn't say anything. We kept out of the conversation for 4 days. And at day 5, those individuals were still having trouble and becoming desperate. And then was when we kind of stepped in and say, hey, if you need some help, we can help you out. And we basically said, okay, we'll help you get back online for the time being until your service provider comes back online. And when it does, you can make a decision where you want to stay. And then that was, for us, I would say, for using Twitter, probably was our most direct affront that we had went against a competitor. But our approach, and it's always been our approach, is not to it was to help, and we wanted to help the folks get online. We offered them up a free account for 30 days if they got back online. In the meantime, on their old service, we didn't there was no tie-ins, no credit cards asked for. We just were trying to help them get back online. And while we helped a number of shows get back online, a couple of them moved back over now that company's resolved their issues. And basically, we kind of used it as a, we're a company that cares, and that's the way we operate, and it falls in within our company philosophy. And but at the same time, there's other times that we say, okay, we have to be careful on how much we're pimping a product that we have within that Twitter account. So yeah, it's a fine line. It really, really is. And I know that me personally, I have a couple of Twitter accounts that I never post to, but I follow specific people for a specific topicality that I want to learn about. But at the same time, I don't want to have all the other noise that goes on in my account that I have for a general following. So I'm sure a lot of people have multiple accounts like that, many that they probably never even admit that they own, and follow specific people for maybe even business intelligence, or I do stuff, collect information for my show content from a select group of people, and that has a tendency to work out real well, because I find links from other folks I would not have found otherwise, whether or not been from Twitter or from RSS feeds.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that strike me when you were talking there. One was, I heard about what you were doing in terms of supporting people whose podcasts had, were having some problems. But actually, one of the things that, in fact, where I heard about it first was in the newsletter. And I think that was a really interesting integration that you had. So, for example, be it Twitter or Facebook, or having a blog, or having a podcast, I still think that other forms of communication, such as a newsletter, are really important, and how to integrate those back there. And in fact, I saw that offer in your newsletter, and I thought the way that you did it was really well, because it was supporting people who were having a problem. Those of us who've got podcasts, if something goes wrong technically, maybe there's a few people like me. I mean, you are absolutely geeky.
Right.
Yeah, you know all the stuff, and you and Angelo and the team are fantastic in terms of supporting people. People like me, I know about a little bit about communication, and hopefully about bringing great content from fantastic speakers who come and join me in terms of in my community. And I hope I spur on and encourage participation and conversation, and get people thinking, and bring people resources through the network that I've developed. But the people like me, if that had happened, I wouldn't even know where to start. Yes, there was a problem with that particular service, but it's like, where do you turn to? What do you do? And so I think stepping in to be able to offer something to that community was fantastic. And the fact that you did it through your newsletter, so that's how I found out there was a problem, because I was reading your newsletter this week, and saw that you were offering support there to that particular group of people. And that's all about building relationships, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's really what Twitter is trying to encourage us to do. And and for me, that network is a network for life.